Library Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Chapter 66 The Deliverance of Pauṇḍraka and the King of Kāśī. The story of King Pauṇḍraka is very interesting because it proves that there have always been many rascals and fools who have considered themselves God. Even in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, there was such a foolish person. His name was Pauṇḍraka, and he wanted to declare himself God. While Lord Balarama was absent in Vrindavana, this King Pauṇḍraka, the king of Kṛṣṇa province, being foolish and puffed up, sent a messenger to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but King Pauṇḍraka directly challenged Krishna through the messenger, who stated that Pauṇḍraka, not Krishna, was Vyāsadeva. In the present day there are many foolish followers of such rascals. Similarly, in Pauṇḍraka's day, many foolish men accepted Pauṇḍraka as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because he could not estimate his own position, Pauṇḍraka falsely thought himself to be Lord Vyāsadeva. Thus the messenger declared to Krishna that King Pauṇḍraka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had descended to the earth out of his causeless mercy just to deliver all distressed persons. Surrounded by many other foolish persons, this rascal Pauṇḍraka had actually concluded that he was Vyāsadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This kind of conclusion is certainly childish. When children are playing, they sometimes select a king amongst themselves, and the selected child may think that he is actually the king. Similarly, many foolish persons, due to ignorance, select another fool as God, and then the rascal actually considers himself God, as if God could be created by childish play or by the votes of men. Under this false impression, thinking himself the Supreme Lord, Pauṇḍraka sent his messenger to Dvaraka to challenge the position of Krishna. The messenger reached the royal assembly of Krishna in Dvaraka and conveyed the message given by his master, Pauṇḍraka. The message contained the following statements: I am the only Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vyāsadeva. No man can compete with me. I have descended as King Pauṇḍraka, taking compassion on the distressed conditioned souls out of my unlimited causeless mercy. You have falsely taken the position of Vyāsadeva without authority, but you should not propagate this false idea. You must give up your position. O descendant of the Yadu dynasty, please give up all the symbols of Vyāsadeva, which you have falsely assumed. And after giving up this position, come and surrender unto me. If out of your gross impudence you do not care for my words, then I challenge you to fight. I am inviting you to a battle in which the decision will be settled. When all the members of the royal assembly, including King Ugrasena, heard this message sent by Pauṇḍraka, they laughed very loudly for a considerable time. After enjoying the loud laughter of all the members of the assembly, Krishna replied to the messenger as follows: O messenger of Pauṇḍraka, you may carry my message to your master. You are a foolish rascal. I directly call you a rascal, and I refuse to follow your instructions. I shall never give up the symbols of Vyāsadeva, especially my disc. I shall use this disc to kill not only you but all your followers also. I shall destroy you and your foolish associates, who merely constitute a society of cheaters and the cheated. O foolish king, you will then have to conceal your face in disgrace, and when your head is severed from your body by my disc, it will be surrounded by meat-eating birds like vultures, hawks and eagles. At that time, instead of becoming my shelter, as you have demanded, you will be subject to the mercy of these low-born birds. At that time your body will be thrown to the dogs, who will eat it with great pleasure. The messenger carried the words of Lord Krishna to his master, Pauṇḍraka, who patiently heard all these insults. Without waiting any longer, Lord Sri Krishna immediately started out on his chariot to punish the rascal Pauṇḍraka, the king of Kṛṣṇa. Because at that time he was living with his friend the king of Kāśī, Krishna surrounded the whole city of Kāśī. King Pauṇḍraka was a great warrior, and as soon as he heard of Krishna's attack, he came out of the city with 2 Ācārya divisions of soldiers. The king of Kāśī also came out, with 3 Ācārya divisions. When the 2 kings came before Lord Krishna to oppose him, Krishna saw Pauṇḍraka face to face for the first time. Krishna saw that Pauṇḍraka had decorated himself with the symbols of the conch shell, disc, lotus and club. He carried an imitation Srga bow, and on his chest was a mock insignia of Srivatsa. His neck was decorated with a false Kaustuba jewel, and he wore a flower garland in exact imitation of Lord Vasudeva's. He was dressed in yellow silken garments, and the flag on his chariot carried the symbol of Garuda, exactly imitating Krishna's. He had a very valuable helmet on his head, and his earrings, like swordfish, glittered brilliantly. On the whole, however, his dress and makeup were clearly imitation. Anyone could understand that he was just like someone on stage playing the part of Vasudeva in false dress. When Lord Sri Krishna saw Pauṇḍraka imitating his posture and dress, he could not check his laughter, and thus he laughed with great satisfaction. The soldiers on the side of King Paṇḍraka began to shower their weapons upon Krishna. The weapons, including various kinds of tridents, clubs, poles, lances, swords, daggers and arrows, came flying in waves, and Krishna counteracted them. He smashed not only the weapons but also the soldiers and assistants of Paṇḍraka, just as during the dissolution of this universe the fire of devastation burns everything to ashes. The elephants, chariots, horses and infantry belonging to the opposite party were scattered by the weapons of Krishna. Indeed, the whole battlefield became strewn with smashed chariots and the bodies of men and animals. There were fallen horses, elephants, men, asses and camels. Although the devastated battlefield appeared like the dancing place of Lord Shiva at the time of the dissolution of the world, the warriors on the side of Krishna were very much encouraged by seeing this, and they fought with greater strength. At this time, Lord Krishna told Paṇḍraka, "Paṇḍraka, you requested me to give up the symbols of Lord Vishnu, specifically my disc. Now I will give it up to you. Be careful. You falsely declare yourself Vyāsadeva, imitating me. Therefore no one is a greater fool than you." From this statement of Krishna's it is clear that any rascal who advertises himself as God is the greatest fool in human society. Krishna continued, "Now, Paṇḍraka, I shall force you to give up this false representation. You wanted me to surrender unto you. Now this is your opportunity. We shall now fight, and if I am defeated and you are victorious, I shall certainly surrender unto you." In this way, after chastising Paṇḍraka very severely, Krishna smashed Paṇḍraka's chariot to pieces by shooting an arrow. Then with the help of his disc he separated Paṇḍraka's head from his body, just as Indra shaves off the peaks of mountains by striking them with his thunderbolt. Similarly, Krishna also killed the king of Kāśī with his arrows. Lord Krishna specifically arranged to throw the head of the king of Kāśī into the city of Kāśī itself so that his relatives and family members could see it. Krishna did this just as a hurricane carries a lotus petal here and there. Lord Krishna killed Paṇḍraka and his friend Kāśī on the battlefield, and then he returned to his capital city, Dvaraka. When Lord Krishna returned to the city of Dvaraka, all the siddhas from the heavenly planets were singing his glories. As far as Paṇḍraka was concerned, somehow or other he always thought of Lord Vyāsadeva by falsely dressing himself in imitation of the Lord. Therefore Paṇḍraka achieved Sarupya, one of the 5 kinds of liberation, and was thus promoted to the Vaikunఠa planets, where the devotees have the same bodily features as Vishnu, with 4 hands holding the 4 symbols. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the Vishnu form, but because he thought himself Lord Vishnu, it was offensive. By his being killed by Krishna, however, that offense was mitigated. Thus he was given Sarupya liberation, and he attained the same form as the Lord. When the head of the king of Kāśī was thrown through the city gate, people gathered and were astonished to see that wonderful thing. When they found out that there were earrings on it, they could understand that it was someone's head. They conjectured as to whose head it might be. Some thought it was Krishna's head because Krishna was the enemy of Kāśī, and they calculated that the king of Kāśī might have thrown Krishna's head into the city so that the people might take pleasure in the enemies having been killed. But they finally detected that the head was not Krishna's but that of Kāśī himself. When this was ascertained, the queens of the king of Kāśī immediately approached and began to lament the death of their husband. "Our dear lord," they cried, "upon your death, we have become just like dead bodies." The king of Kāśī had a son whose name was Sudaksina. After observing the ritualistic funeral ceremonies, he took a vow that since Krishna was the enemy of his father, he would kill Krishna and in this way liquidate his debt to his father. Therefore, accompanied by a learned priest qualified to help him, he began to worship Mahadeva, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, who is also known as Visvanatha, is the lord of the kingdom of Kāśī. The temple of Lord Visvanatha is still existing in Varanasi, and many thousands of pilgrims still gather daily in that temple. By the worship of Sudaksina, Lord Shiva was very much pleased, and he wanted to give a benediction to his devotee. Sudaksina's purpose was to kill Krishna, and therefore he prayed for a specific power by which to kill him. Lord Shiva advised that Sudaksina, assisted by the Brahmanas, execute the ritualistic ceremony for killing one's enemy. This ceremony is also mentioned in some of the Tantras. Lord Shiva informed Sudaksina that if such a black ritualistic ceremony were performed properly, then the evil spirit named Dakshinagni would appear and then carry out any order given to him. He would have to be employed, however, to kill someone other than a qualified Brahmana. If all these conditions were met, then Dakshinagni, accompanied by Lord Shiva's ghostly companions, would fulfill the desire of Sudaksina to kill his enemy. When Sudaksina was encouraged by Lord Shiva in that way, he was sure that he would be able to kill Krishna. With a determined vow of austerity, he began to execute the black art of chanting mantras, assisted by the priests. After this, out of the fire came a great demoniac form, whose hair, beard and mustache were exactly the color of hot copper. This form was very big and fierce. As the demon arose from the fire, cinders of fire emanated from the sockets of his eyes. The giant fiery demon appeared still more fierce due to the movements of his eyebrows. He exhibited long, sharp teeth and, sticking out his long tongue, licked his upper and lower lips. He was naked, and he carried a big trident, blazing like fire. After appearing from the fire of sacrifice, he stood wielding the trident in his hand. Instigated by Sudaksina, the demon proceeded toward the capital city, Dvaraka, with many hundreds of ghostly companions, and it appeared that he was going to burn all outer space to ashes. The surface of the earth trembled because of his striking steps. When he entered the city of Dvaraka, all the residents panicked, just like animals in a forest fire. At that time, Krishna was playing chess in the Royal Assembly Council Hall. All the residents of Dvaraka approached and addressed him, "Dear Lord of the Three Worlds, a great fiery demon is ready to burn the whole city of Dvaraka. Please save us." In this way all the inhabitants of Dvaraka appealed to Lord Krishna for protection from the fiery demon who had just appeared in Dvaraka to devastate the whole city. Lord Krishna, who specifically protects his devotees, saw that the whole population of Dvaraka was most perturbed by the presence of the great fiery demon. He immediately smiled and assured them, "Don't worry. I shall give you all protection. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is all-pervading. He is within everyone's heart, and he is also without, in the form of the cosmic manifestation." He could understand that the fiery demon was a creation of Lord Shiva, and in order to vanquish the demon he took his Sudarsana chakra and ordered him to take the necessary steps. The Sudarsana chakra appeared with the effulgence of millions of suns, his heat being as powerful as the fire created at the end of the cosmic manifestation. By his effulgence the Sudarsana chakra illuminated the entire universe, on the surface of the earth as well as in outer space. Then the Sudarsana chakra began to freeze the fiery demon created by Lord Shiva. In this way, the fiery demon was checked by the Sudarsana chakra of Lord Krishna, and, being defeated in his attempt to devastate the city of Dvaraka, he turned back. Having failed to set fire to Dvaraka, the fiery demon went back to Varanasi, the kingdom of Kāśī. As a result of his return, all the priests who had helped instruct the black art of mantras, along with their employer, Sudaksina, were burned to ashes by the glaring effulgence of the fiery demon. According to the methods of black art mantras instructed in the Tantras, if the mantra fails to kill the enemy, then, because it must kill someone, it kills the original creator. Sudaksina was the originator, and the priests assisted him, therefore all of them were burned to ashes. This is the way of the demons create something to kill God, but by the same weapon the demons themselves are killed. Following just behind the fiery demon, the Sudarsana chakra also entered Varanasi. This city had been very opulent and great for a very long time. Even now, the city of Varanasi is opulent and famous, and it is one of the important cities of India. There were then many big palaces, assembly houses, marketplaces and gates, with large and very important monuments by the palaces and gates. Lecturing platforms could be found at each and every crossroads. There were buildings that housed the treasury, elephants, horses, chariots and grain, and places for distribution of food. The city of Varanasi had been filled with all these material opulences for a very long time, but because the king of Kāśī and his son Sudaksina were against Lord Krishna, the Vishnu chakra Sudarsana, the disc weapon of Lord Krishna, devastated the whole city by burning all these important places. This excursion was more ravaging than modern bombing. The Sudarsana chakra, having thus finished his duty, came back to his lord, Sri Krishna, at Dvaraka. This narration of the devastation of Varanasi by Krishna's disc weapon, the Sudarsana chakra, is transcendental and auspicious. Anyone who narrates or hears this story with faith and attention will be released from all reaction to sinful activities. This is the assurance of Sukadeva Goswami, who narrated this story to Pariksit Maharaja. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 66th chapter of Krishna, the Deliverance of Pauṇḍraka and the King of Kāśī.